right, thank you. Yeah, that deserves a hand, doesn't it? There. That was done by one of our staff, Dennis Shute, which is really incredible. Welcome, everybody. My name is Greg Gorga, Executive Director of your Santa Barbara Maritime Museum. So glad to have you here. We are going to be listening to Chumash Maritime History by Chumash Elder Alan Salazar. I want to thank you all. I want to certainly thank our lecture series sponsor, Marie Morris Rowe. She has sponsored the next 5 years of our lecture series. So yeah, let's hear it for Marie. I want to thank our friends at Giordano's and One Vine Wines for everybody get some wine tonight. This is being recorded by TV Santa Barbara, so it will be up on our website in one to 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks, as are all of our lectures. So if you've missed any of our past lectures, you can go to our website and see those. How many of you have been upstairs to see the Kevin Short, The Peaceful Sea exhibit? All right. Yeah, isn't that wonderful? We worked for 8 years to get Kevin Short here. We were so excited to have that exhibit. It will run through December, so tell your friends to come see that. We had a crazy busy October here. The staff are running around with kind of red eyes because they're still busy, actually. Today we were out in Carpinteria doing education programming. But one of our board members, Roger Chrisman, and his wife Sarah purchased the Mystic Whaler, shipped it out from New England, and it is normally anchored out in Channel Islands Harbor in Oxnard, but we brought that tall ship up here for a couple of weeks, and we put 10 classes on board doing a California trading program. Fourth graders studying their California history really got a hands-on immersive experience on the tall ship. So we want to thank Roger and Sarah Chrisman for that experience. Yeah, let's hear it for them. We have quite a few, actually, docents here at the Maritime Museum, and I want to let you know that on January 14th, we start an 11-week program of docent training. There are Saturday mornings. You'll go through that program and know more about our local maritime history than anybody around. So if you're interested in becoming a volunteer and being a part of that program, again, go to sbmm.org, and it's really easy to sign up as a volunteer. And then Jesse Baker, our guest services manager, will contact you and let you know more about that docent program. We are dark as far as lecture for December, but in January on the 19th, we'll have photographer Chuck Graham here doing a presentation. He is an amazing wildlife photographer. And then in late February, I think a few of you joined me last year, but in late February, the Maritime Museum is sponsoring 2 trips down to San Ignacio Lagoon, just on the Pacific side above Cabo San Lucas. That is where the gray whales birth and nurse their calves. And we get to go out on ponga boats owned by the local fishermen to the reserve there and interact with gray whales. So if you're interested in being a part of that experience, it is a wow experience. Yes, absolutely. Last year, I kissed either the same whale 3 times, which I might be engaged, or 3 different whales. So again, on our website, you can get information about that. Again, that supports the Maritime Museum. It is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. There are hundreds of whales down there, and everybody on our trip, we had about 30 members, everybody got to touch a whale, including a 4-year-old boy, and his mom said there was a lot of bragging at T-ball the following week. And then hopefully you follow us on Instagram, Facebook. It's really easy to sign up for our weekly updates. The bottom of our homepage is just your name and email, and then so you'll know more about all that's happening here. It is the holidays, so the gift of membership is a wonderful thing to give people. And if you are a member of the Maritime Museum, from November 25th through December 24th, we're doing a 20% off of anything in our store for our members. And then I also want to remind everybody that we are a part of Toys for Tots. So if you bring a nice unwrapped toy to the museum, and it's just for a few more weeks, I forget when they take that away, but you get free admission to the Maritime Museum. So please tell your friends about that as well. All right, are we ready for our speaker tonight? All right, so tonight we are honored to be joined by Chumash Elder Puchuk Ya'iak, translated as Fast Runner, who we also know as Alan Salazar. Alan is a founding member of the Chumash Maritime Association and one of the group's most experienced paddlers and tamal builders. He is also a storyteller, indigenous educator, spiritual advisor, researcher, preschool teacher, and knowledge keeper of Chumash history. He gets that all on one business card, by the way. In addition, Alan is the published author of Tata, the Tataviam Toi, a tribal story, and is currently at work on his next book, which I believe will be out in just 5 or 6 weeks. As a spiritual advisor within the Chumash and Tataviam community, he leads ceremonies and prayer circles during the traditional Native American gatherings and continues to fight for tribal issues of urban indigenous people. Alan's family has traced its family ancestry to the Chumash village of Tapui, now known as Simi Valley, and the Tataviam village of Chagoyunga near Castiac. I knew I was going to have more trouble with Castiac than anything else. They are Ventureno Chumash and Fernandino Tataviam, who were brought into the San Fernando Mission starting in 1799. He is a founding member of the Kern County Native American Heritage Preservation Council, a member of the California Indian Advisory Council for the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History, and we have some good friends from the Natural History Museum here today, and a community advisor with the Ventura County Indian Education Consortium. Since taking archaeology classes at Cal State Bakersfield, Alan has actively monitored and protected his ancestors' villages, village sites, and tribal territories. He was also the lead monitor from 2011 to 2017 at the Boeing Santa Susana Field Lab site in Simi Valley, which is a unique 2,800-acre site with sacred solstice and rock art. As a member of the Chumash Maritime Association, and we've had a long, great partnership with them, he helped build the first working traditional Chumash plank canoe in contemporary times and has paddled in this tamal for over 24 years. He is a member of the Elders Council for the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, and he has also been involved with teaching youth about Native American cultures for 30 years. He has done professional educational programs at schools, museums, and cultural events for 25 years, including storytelling programs at the American Museum of Britain in Bath, England. Please join me in welcoming Alan Salazar.
Thank you, my friend. If you're going to tell stories, you have to have a hat. Aku Hamanat Netawan, Alan Salazar Netawan Puchu Kiayak. Basically, I'm going to translate what Greg said. Pazekva Nukasin, Chagoyanga Tapu Nukasin. Hello, I'm Alan Salazar, fast runner. I was born in the village of Pasekva, which is San Fernando, California, and it's where my indigenous tribal family comes from. I put the pictures up over there, so please, when I'm through in about 3 hours, go by and take a look at them. But we trace back to the village of Chagoyanga, which is a Tataviam village where Magic Mountain is currently built, and to the Ventureno Chumash village of Tapu Canyon in Simi Valley. I want to start by acknowledging whose land we are on. We're on the unceded land of the Barbareño Chumash, and I want to thank their ancestors for letting me come here and speak tonight and allowing me to be involved with our tamals and paddle in them and help build them for the last 25 years. The tribal people are here in the front, and I want to acknowledge, and it's an honor for me to speak with fellow tribal members here. And I want to start by giving a little history of our Chumash plank canoes, our tamals. Archaeologists believe that we've been building them for a little bit over 3,000 years. And at least the archaeologists that I've spoke to tell me that they base that on when you go to our sites and you get down to the 3,000 year level where they're excavating and dating materials, that's when they start finding larger fish bones, dolphin, swordfish, shark. And they think that's when we started building the plank canoes to go out to fish the bigger fish with the harpoons. I believe we've been making them for around 7,000 years, because when our ocean waters raised and our coastline moved back, and that one large island, Santa Rosa, became Anacapa, Santa Cruz, Santa Rosa, San Miguel, that we started building the bigger canoes. We just continued fishing the smaller fish because they were so abundant. But it's all theory. We also made Tule reed canoes and small dugout canoes. And we are basically ocean people, and we have been for over 10,000, 13,000 years. The more modern history is when the mission started, and as Greg said, my tribal ancestors on my father's side were brought to the San Fernando mission starting in 1799. That's when our life and our traditional way of life pretty much ended. We were the farm workers, the ranch hands, the cooks, the maids, and our young people were learning those skills, not canoe building skills. So somewhere around the 1830s to 1840s, they believe we stopped building our plank canoes. I've never read a whole lot about how we started building them, since it was thousands of years ago. It's all theory. My theory is when the redwood logs from Northern California would wash down our coast during big storms. So Big Sur and north of Big Sur, where all the coastal redwoods are, before we dammed up all our rivers and all the water flowed to the ocean, in big storms, it wasn't unusual for the coastal redwood trees to fall into the rivers and be washed out to the ocean and washed down the coast of California. We knew, the woodworkers of our tribes knew that redwood was a very valuable wood. It lasts a long time, it's soft, it's easy to work with. If you make a dugout canoe, you throw away 3/4 of that log. You're digging it out, chipping it out, throwing those chips away. If you take wedges and drive wedges into that log and make planks, you're going to use 75–80% of that log. So you can actually get more canoes out of a log making a plank canoe than you can making one dugout canoe. It's my theory. Then we use the tar and the pine pitch to glue them together. And the twine, dogbane twine, was the preferred twine. My understanding, a canoe like the one we have here at the museum would take over a mile of twine. So it was literally a community village event. The women were making the twine, the men were making the boards. And let me touch on something right now. In 1997, I got involved with our tamols. So the 1830s, we had stopped building them. Fernando Lombrado built a tamol in 1912. It's at the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History. And he built that tamol to show how the Chumash build them, the planks, how they're glued together, how they're tied together, side wales and things like that, the ears. And then it wasn't until 1976 that another working tamal was built by my dear friend sitting over here, Peter Howarth, who's probably built more tamals in modern times than even most of us Chumash people have. And if it wasn't for his expertise as a boat builder, as a woodworker, it would have taken us longer. So they built the Halek in 1976. It was used for the summer of our bicentennial celebration. My understanding is they never made a crossing, so it was taken on a support boat out to Santa Cruz. The Chumash men did some paddling around Lemu, and then they took it over to Wima, to Santa Rosa, and did some paddling there. and then brought it back. And now it's at the Museum of Natural History. We were approached in 1997 by the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum as it was opening, that they were going to build 3 tumulus, and Peter Holworth was going to oversee the construction of them. And the first 2 were going to be one for the museum and one for the Santa Barbara County Office of Education for educational purposes. And then one was going to be for the Chumash community, Eliwayun, swordfish. And we helped finish the one that's here, that we believe is hummingbird. And then we started building Eliwayun in 1997, the first working tumul in modern times. We finished it literally 25 years ago, almost to the day. It was Thanksgiving weekend in 1997 that we put her in the harbor right here and put her in the water and paddled in her for the first time. I was in that first crew. I was the #1 paddler. Let me explain that. I'm not saying I'm the #1 paddler. I'm saying I was the paddler in the front of the tumul. We number them. Seat 1, seat 2, seat 3, seat 4. Although they're not seats, flat bottom canoes are very tippy, so we put ballast in them. We line the bottom with sandbags. Eliwayun, about 300 to 350 pounds of sandbags. We actually kneel on those sandbags. We're wimpy Californians, so we put down like Pilates and yoga mats, and we put on spandex. It's kind of embarrassing now. Half of what I say is true, and the other half you have to figure it out. I'm a storyteller. So in November of 1997, we put Eliwayun in the water for the first time. And our goal was to relearn the skills on how we built them, how we paddled them, and how we navigated. So all of us, with the exception of Marcus Lopez Sr., who did have a couple years experience paddling in the Tiat, Momot Hiko, the rest of us, it was all new. We were learning on the fly. For 4 years we practiced, and in 2001, September 8th, we thought we were ready to paddle across the channel. We were going to leave from Channel Islands Harbor in Oxnard and paddle over to Anacapa, take some photos, a little video footage, and then paddle on to Limu. We left at 3:45 in the morning. Now, prior to that, we'd practiced making crew changes where we have a rubber Zodiac come out with fresh crew members. And we're out in the ocean, out in open waters, and the canoes going up and down, and we have to switch out one paddler at a time, and one paddler from the Zodiac. And it's a little dangerous, but we've mastered it. So we practiced that. We practiced long paddles. We paddled from Santa Barbara to Carpinteria several times, and we felt we were ready. But when we left at 3:45 in the morning, and once again I was #1. I thoroughly enjoy saying that. I know it irritates some, so that's why I enjoy saying it so much, with this little coyote grin of mine. But when we left at 3:45 in the morning and we got out of the Channel Islands Harbor, and it was pitch black dark, it was overcast that day, so there was no moon, there was no stars, and we realized, we hadn't practiced this. So at that time we had 5 paddlers in Eliwayun, and it was a new experience for all of us, paddling when it was dark. And now dark water paddlers are some of our most respected paddlers. When we leave at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:45 in the morning, that first crew has to paddle till the sun starts coming up, where we have enough daylight that we can see and safely make a crew change. So usually the first crew paddles the longest, 3.5 There was one year we left 2 a.m. Happy hour just ended, so we said, hell, let's go. No, we didn't. But your dark water paddlers are your most experienced paddlers. It's an honor to be a dark water paddler. I should have kept better count. I know I've been a dark water paddler a few times. And it's some of the most incredible paddling that you can experience. I don't know how many of you have paddled at night or been on the ocean at night. It's a truly incredible experience when you're in a small canoe that's only about 1.5 feet, 2 feet above the ocean water. We left one morning and it was a red tide. So it was like that effervescence every time we put our paddle in the water, a light show. One year we left and it was a full moon and there was no coastal marine layer, there was no fog. We could see all the stars, and the full moon literally set in the ocean as we paddled, and the moon set about 5 a.m. It was an incredible experience. Dark water paddling is some of the best paddling that any of us, and I have no idea how many paddlers we've had in the last 25 years. It's a pretty small select group, a couple hundred at best. There's only a handful, 5, 6, 7 that have paddled in all the crossings over the years. The first 5 or 6 years, we had 20, 30 people. They're all coming back and paddling, and then slowly, people couldn't make it. People's car broke down, and they didn't get to the harbor by 3 o'clock in the morning. We left. So it's been quite an honor to help bring back that. And for me, the biggest honor has been to help mentor whatever little I could our young paddlers. If there's any paddlers out here, competitive paddlers, outrigger paddlers, it's a skill, it's an art form. There's little tricks and techniques that you learn as you go along, how to turn the blade a little bit so it doesn't make a big splash in the water. It's slicing into the water, that push, pull, the difficulty of paddling for 3 hours on your knees, how to stay comfortable and hydrated. I've learned over the years. I start about 5 days before. I have no idea how many bananas I eat before the crossing, but I eat a lot of them to cut down on cramping. So that's the brief history of our tamals. One of the wonderful things about where we are at, Santa Barbara and Ventura are also the homes of where some of the last traditional tamals were built. The Santa Barbara Mission had 30 of them in the 1820s and 1830s, and my understanding is that they were lost in a big storm. Some of the last 3 were built at the Ventura Mission at the request of the Mission Padres when the missions were struggling during drought years. So in the 1820s, possibly into about the 1830s, some of the old members of the Brotherhood of the Tamal built some of the last working ones at Ventura that were used for fishing to help supply food for the Ventura Mission. I've mentioned a couple times, and just right now mentioned the Brotherhood of the Tamal. As Greg said, I was one of the founding members of the Chumash Maritime Association, and it was a small group of us, Roberta Cadero, Marcus Lopez, I'm 71, so I forget everyone's name, but Dennis, and my dear friend, who I just loved to death. I respected this man very much, Crescenzio Lopez. Crescenzio did all of our inlay, so when you look at the inlay at that tamal right there, the inlay on Eliwayun is museum quality worthy. It's just beautiful, and Crescenzio was already 70 years old, and he knew he wasn't going to paddle. He says, "But I can help build it. I can help do the abalone inlay." And we were the founding members of the Chumash Maritime Association. And one thing I remember about those early years was that I was thinner and my hair was black. That pisses me off now. But many of our discussions those first few months as we were working on El Uyun was, it's the brotherhood of the Tamol. Are women going to help build it, and are women going to paddle in it? As I said, I'm a storyteller. Our stories are not just for entertainment, although there's a lot of them that are funny and humorous and great stories to listen to and to tell. Our stories teach lessons. Our stories tell about our culture and our beliefs. The Chumash believe in 3 levels of the world: the upper world, the middle world, the underworld. The upper world is where the sky people live. The sky people are sky coyote, sky lizard, sky snake, the sky eagle, the sun, the moon, and morning star. Those are the sky people. The middle world is like a big island. It's held up by 2 giant snakes. In the underworld, there's supernatural, scary things that come out at night to scare the kids, to make sure that they come home before it gets dark. Fox News reporters are in the underworld. It's scary, scary, scary stuff. I truly, if there's any Republicans out there, my friends, I truly do not apologize. I'm in fuego. But that story tells what our world is, our beliefs. And there's an old Chumash myth and legend that was told by Fernando Lobrado, who was probably our main source for what we know about our canoes. Besides the one he built in 1912, his drawings, his notes that Harrington wrote and everything are extremely detailed. If it wasn't for Fernando Lobrado, we would have been 20, 30 years behind. And Fernando Lobrado told this story, and the story starts that the wote, and wote is the Chumash word for chief, so the chief's daughter was out fishing one day in her tamol. The chief's daughter was out fishing one day in her tamol. That means our women had their canoes. We've always been a culture that values our women and just values our tribal members. And we had women wotes, women leaders, and I'm sure in times of drought, when we were struggling, our women helped build our tamols as much as the men did. So it wasn't very popular. We were bad-mouthed and caught some grief from some traditional Chumash men that it's Alan, it's the brotherhood of the tamol. And we made that decision as a group, and we've always had women help build our tamols, and we've always had women paddlers. Yes, that's worthy of applause. Thank you. In fact, there's only a few things that I'm really proud of, and one, we have a young lady named Eva Pagaline. Now, she would have been a great paddler anyway, because her dad is Reggie Pagaline, and Reggie has been paddling for 25 years like I have, and he's one of our captains, and he's the captain of Muptamai. But I've helped mentor Eva, and she's one of our strongest paddlers. She's not one of our strongest women paddlers, she's one of our strongest paddlers. And I believe she's probably going to be our first woman captain. She's dedicated, hardworking, She has a little bit of my mentality, which she borders on being extremely determined and stubborn, and she just will not give up. And when you look at where we're at, November, Native American Month, honoring Native tribes and Native peoples and our Native beliefs, the Eva Pangolins of the world, that's what we need. We need the young people to carry on the traditions. We've been blessed in our tribal cultures that our young people haven't left their culture. They stay involved. I forgot I was supposed to be doing this. That's Eliwayun right there. I don't think that was a 2001 crossing. That was probably about 2005, 2006. But you can see Crescenzio's swordfish inlay. It's just incredible. That's Muktamai. That's the 32-footer. That's from Santa Ynez. Muktamai is Ancient Memories, and it's the tamal that we've paddled in the most for the last 10 years or so. I know I'm in there somewhere. I'm not sure if Eve is in there. Number one. That's the inlay. Santa Ynez, when we built Eliwayun swordfish, we just bought the best marine glues we could, and then we painted the joints with black paint so it looked like the tar. And that's what they did, with the exception of their ears. They used some of the traditional tar and pine pitch on their ears. We keep her here in Santa Barbara. I put this paddle up here when they turned the lights on. This paddle here, I measured it. It's 9.5 feet long. That's a short paddle. There's the Zodiac when we make our crossings and how we make the crew changes. But our paddles are actually 11 feet long. So like I said, it takes a lot of upper body strength. These photos here are of me working on, that's one of our original paddles that I have. And then this year, I made my own paddle. Only took me 25 years to make my own paddle. And I made it 11 feet 1 inch, so I can say my paddle's a little bit over 11 feet. There's nothing wrong with being shallow and vain, I think, as long as you admit it. That's my paddle, fourth from the top. I built my paddle with the help of Patagonia at their workshop in Ventura. It's like about a mile from my condo, so it worked out really well. And Patagonia, for being such a great company, for some reason they decided to write a story about me in their magazine. And then they graciously offered, this is the first public announcement of this, Patagonia has offered to fund the construction of 1 or 2 tamals for the Ventura Chumash community. Yeah. So next year, we will start building working tamals like Eliwayun in Ventura for the Ventura Chumash community, for the Barbareño, Ventureño Band of Mission Indians, in collaboration with the Fernandino Tataviam, a tribe that's more inland, but used to come and work with the Chumash, that traded with the Chumash, that intermarried with the Chumash. I'm an example, Tataviam Chumash. I'm lost for words, and I'm a storyteller. If I'm lost for words, That's amazing. I hope that I have my dear friend Peter Howarth to give us some advice, and maybe this time next year we'll be putting a 24, 26-foot tomol in the water at the Ventura Harbor, and the canoe family will continue to grow. On a completely different subject, these photos got thrown in. I was trying to think, like, okay, how am I going to tie this in? This is a blessing for the wildlife bridge that's going to be built over Liberty Canyon from Highway 101. And this is how I tie it into tonight's talk. I was asked to consult on the bridge, native plants, native views. It's going to be the largest, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's going to be the largest wildlife bridge in North America. It's going to take several years to build. They've already started construction on it. It will go over 8 lanes of 101 and then over Agora Road. And when I first got involved with the project, thinking, what can I bring to the table? I was sitting there with environmental scientists and engineers, men and women that all had masters and PhDs, and I knew I wasn't going to impress them with that. I have an AA degree from Bakersfield Junior College. But when I told them, you know what this project reminds me of? It reminds me of the Rainbow Bridge. And they go, what's the Rainbow Bridge? I go, well, it's a Chumash story that says when the island of Lamu got too crowded, that Hutash, some other earth spirit, built a Rainbow Bridge from the island over to the mainland, so half of the Chumash people could safely cross the channel. I go, that's what we're building, a safe way for the mountain lions, for the deer, the coyotes, the raccoons, the possums, the lizards, to safely get across that 101. Tribal people all around the world, but definitely I know my Chumash ancestors, I know my Tataviam ancestors. We know the importance of respecting the animals. Even the ones we hunted and ate, we still respected. We still did ceremony for deer. We still did ceremony for dolphin, a dolphin dance, even though we hunted them. We honored and respected the swordfish for being such strength and putting up such a strong fight, and we admired them for their qualities. And this is going to be a shameless plug. I brought 2 of my books, and they're my original stories, and I wrote them in the spirit of my Tataviam ancestors, because my Tataviam tribe is a very small tribe. We were close to extinction, so most of our language is lost. Most of our stories are lost. Chumash being a bigger tribe, there's a lot of stories written down from various Chumash elders at the turn of the century in the early 1900s. But your Taviam knows, so I wrote 2 books. They're my original stories, but I tried to write them in the spirit of my Tataviam ancestors. And most of the Southern California tribes, we are clan people. We have the bear clan, we have the eagle clan, we have the dolphin clan, we have the spider clan, we have the lizard clan. We use the animals as teachers. So in my Tataviam creation story, that's what I say, that it was the animals that created the Tataviam people. The Chumash say that it was the sky people, or Hutash. But all tribal people respected all the animals. And it's a lesson that I think many Americans still today don't understand, that we need them more than they need us. The more of them that go extinct, the closer we are to extinction. So the more we can do to build wildlife bridges, to build tunnels under freeways, our hope is that this grand opening for the Wallace Annenberg, I was a little disappointed. I was involved pretty early on, and I made several $20 donations, and apparently I was way short, because the Wallaceburg Foundation made a $25 million donation, and now it's the Wallace Annenberg. So, being a poor Indian boy, I'm hoping that when they're pouring the cement, I'm going to go over and write my name when it's still kind of wet, and that's going to be my only shot at being famous. But it's been an incredible journey. It's something I'm extremely proud of. I hate to show you the last picture. That's kind of scary. I'll go back to that one. But I want to leave some time for Q&A. I feel I've talked way too much about our canoes, and the history is much more complex, and everything. That was the outline. But I'll try and answer questions.
Before you do that, can you talk about the ears of the canoe? Because Marcus talked, I just learned from Marcus that you use that for navigation. Talk a little bit about that? Yeah,
the way the canoe is built, the ears don't come together. There's a little bit of a gap. The actual responsibility of being the number one paddler is you're the eyes of the captain. So everyone has a job in the Tumol. Anyone that paddles in outriggers knows this also. So the paddler in the back is the navigator or captain. He or she's the leader. They're responsible for the crew. The number one paddler, he or she is the eyes. And you have that little bit of a gap. It's about 6 inches, and you have the best view. You can see the swells. You can see boats when we're out in the harbor for our practice. When kayakers are coming towards us. They also protect when you get in rough water some of the water coming over into the Tumol. So they're not just for decoration. They do have some functionality to them, and it's the way the Tumols were built to show you that how well the design is. In 2012, we were about 8 miles out in Muktamai. Conditions were very rough. We just made a crew change, so the second crew had just started paddling. She had about a foot of water in her. When I say we lined the bottom with sandbags, the 32-footer, we put well over 600 pounds of ballast in her. So she had a foot of water, which means she had 600 pounds of wet sand. 6 paddlers. The captain uses his paddle as a rudder. So if all of you guys are waves and swells coming at the canoe, at the Tumol, we want to take you like this. We can go like that, we can go like that. If we go like that, and the swell hits on the side of the Tumol, it's going to fill it up with water. And that's what happened. In 2012, that Tumol right there, 8 miles out, had a swell hit it on the side, fill it up with water, and it didn't sink. We have 2 little rubber things. Those 2 little rubber things with air, they probably couldn't hold my fat ass up. Sorry, kids. But the width, the length, the wood, redwood, that bottom board that's 2 feet wide at the center, it displaces the weight, and it just went to ocean level and stayed there. And we were able to get our paddlers out. We threw the sandbags off, so we lost our sandbags. Everything else pretty well floated, so we tried to get everything so we didn't leave any litter in the ocean. And the only thing that was that was lost that I shed a tear over was there were about a 5-year span that I paddled in doggy beds. Remember I said we kneel on the things? So I figured out if I had a doggy bed, I could kneel in that doggy bed. It protects me all around. It's soft and fuzzy and furry. Yeah, that's sunk. It's at the bottom of the ocean. I hope a lobster's living in it. So yeah, that's the ears. The next year it was the same conditions, and it's when I realized Eva was going to be a great paddler. She was the #1 paddler, and I was the #2 paddler. And like I said, the ears help keep the water out. So we got in rough waters again, and if you hit the bottom of a swell just right, the water will come over the ears and hit the first 2 paddlers. It's literally like having someone take a 5-gallon bucket of water and throwing that 5-gallon bucket of water and hitting you right in your chest right here. And you have to keep paddling. And when we got out, I asked Eva, I go, Eva, how many 5-gallon buckets of water did we have thrown at us in that 2-hour shift? And she didn't know what I was talking about. And then she realized, oh, I go, 8 or 10? She goes, more, 12 or 15. Which means we hit the bottom 1,000 times. And out of those 1,000 times, 15 times the water came over the ears. So they're very functional. The Tongva Gabrielino, or tribe to the south, that also make plank canoes, they don't usually put ears on theirs. They have a kind of half board at the front that's about 3 feet long. It keeps a little bit of water, but I think the ears keep a little bit more of the water out, and they give you that almost a tunnel vision to see for the #1 paddler. So should we open up for questions?
Sure.
Can we turn on the lights?
Yeah, we'll turn on the lights. We got one back there.
Perfect. Yes, sir.
So the redwood logs floating on the coast of Southern California, how do the natives go out and retrieve these big, heavy redwood logs and bring them to the coast to work on?
Eventually they do wash ashore. The example I always use is Cambria. If you go to Cambria right now, there's like about 30 logs on their beach. The Spanish say that a lot of them wound up at the islands, which would make sense. If they're a little bit off the shore, they're going to wind up on the islands. And it's part of the reason why we built flat bottom canoes, so we can carry a lot of weight in them and go out and get trade items. So if they went out there, we would bring the logs back here. Carpinteria was one of the main canoe building villages in our area here. Marcus, have we gone 12 or 13 times? I'm never quite sure.
I think you went 15 or 16.
15 or 16? So all with the exception of 2012, we've all been successful crossings. That was the only one that we only made it about 8 miles, and we tied her up and they towed her back. So whatever percentage that is, the question was how many times, successful times, crossings have we made? Like I said, we don't keep real good records. Just like when they were asking me about the talk and what I wanted, I always say I'm one of the most experienced paddlers. I've probably paddled more miles than anybody, because one, I've paddled in all the crossings, and two, I love being on the water, so I try and make as many practices as I can, and plus we just hang out on the beach anyway, so they're kind of cool. Yes?
I'm curious, how long does it take to cross?
There's been only about 2 or 3 times where it's been nice and flat, and I don't ever, I probably check the ocean waters every day, even though we're not going to go out. So today would have been a good day to go out. When it's nice and flat, we can make it in 6 hours. Average conditions, 8 hours. Rough conditions, 10 hours. And when we've been in those times where we didn't make it, The first crossing, when we left at 3:45, we got to Lemieux about 3 p.m., so it was almost 12 hours that time. So it just depends on conditions. So how long does it take was the question. I'm sorry. I'll get this. So how do we steer, and did we go this year? We were supposed to go September 10th. Like I said, and over the years, like I said, we've learned and improved our techniques. So now our paddle blades, as you can see, are how big they are. They're about 8 inches long. The blade part, about 6 inches wide. Now the navigator, he has a bigger blade, so he's using he or she's paddling, and then to get it to correct, they use theirs as a rudder. So if you put it on the right, it'll pull to the right. You put the blade on the left, it'll pull to the left. What was the second part of the question?
Did you go out with
Oh, the hurricane. Yeah, we were all set to go, and because we have so many people, we usually have anywhere from 100 to 150 family and friends that are out there on the island waiting for us, camping out. They set up camp, have the food all ready for us, and there have been a couple other times where we got up at 2. Usually we get up at 2 a.m. check weather conditions, and there has been a couple times in the 25 years. That's why we haven't gone 25 times. We've gone about 16, 17. And there's been a few years that we just woke up and it was already 20-mile-per-hour winds. This year with the hurricane, we knew by, I think, Thursday or Friday morning, we're not going to go. Conditions were just too dangerous. We probably couldn't have even gotten out of the harbor because we have to check in with Harbor Patrol. And I know there was a small craft advisory that Saturday morning, but because we plan, logistics is so difficult. NOAA is our support boat. There's a lot of logistics in a crossing for us because we have support boats along, 2 or 3 people on the island waiting for us. So if we don't go, it's just going to be next year. So we'll go next year, I hope. Yes, sir. How much do the paddles weigh, and are the boards, if it's a 26-foot canoe, are the boards 26 feet long? I actually was curious about that when I was making my paddle, and I weighed it. They only weigh about 3 or 4 pounds. But then, like I said, when you weigh what your outrigger paddle weighs, is probably less than a pound. So putting it into perspective, it weighs a couple pounds, but when you're paddling for 3 hours doing this, it's all about resistance. So if you haven't figured out, I talk a little. The deeper you put your blade, the more difficult it is to paddle. So it doesn't really matter if it only weighs 2 or 3 pounds. Traditionally, the advantage of making a plank canoe is if you're going to make a 26-foot tomol, a 26-foot canoe, you don't need all 26-foot long planks. You can have a 14 and a 12 and glue them together. And that's the way we've been making them in modern times. We usually use 2 planks for each pool. There are about 6. I'm pretty sure most of the ones that we've built in modern times, and we've probably built since '97, 5 or 6, they're all about 6 planks deep, and most of us will use a 14 and a 12 to make a 26-foot pool, and then sometimes we'll get a full long board. It does make it easier. Thank you. Over here. So the question was, we use double-bladed paddles. Have we ever considered using single, like the Polynesian and the outriggers? I think it is more difficult with a double-bladed paddle. I've paddled in outriggers, and to me that's easier paddling. So I think the answer might be is we're just more studly. I'm going to quit right there. I haven't got any questions over here.
How can someone support these crossings, and is there a special name for the paddlers?
You know, and I was hoping our language expert would be here, and Matthew Vasudu couldn't make it tonight. I know there are some words in the various Chumash dialects for paddlers and for paddling, but I'm just not aware of what they are. Naturally, we're a small group. Let me go off in a completely different direction. The Chumash territory has 6 distinct groups. The Yak Tichu Yak Tahini, which is the northern Chumash, Samala, which is Santa Ynez, Barbareño, Ventureño, the island Chumash, the mountain Chumash. The only ones that are federally recognized is Santa Ynez. So the rest of us, we live on donations. So when we get close to our crossing, we have our practices right here in the harbor, right by where the outriggers are, we're always, taking donations for food. It's several $1,000s to feed everybody on the island. Gas for we have a lot of wonderful people, organizations like NOAA that support us. But as anyone that's boating on the channel, gas is extremely expensive, so we try and help those people with gas. There's just a lot of expenses, so donations to the various groups. It just depends on who's involved with the crossings. So sometimes it's the Chumash Maritime Association, sometimes it's the Barbareño Chumash Council, and next year it's going to be the Barbareño Ventureño Band of Mission Indians, and we're all fairly non-recognized. So go online and check them out. The young lady over there. Yes.
My name is Sterling. I'm on the board of directors here at the Maritime Museum, and I'm chair of the education committee. And I just have to say I'm so proud that Marcus Lopez, who's sitting next to me, is the back canoer. So
Yes.
Thank you so much. So proud of the museum. And Marcus, he brought so much Chumash culture to our committee and to the museum. So.
As soon as I retire, Marcus will have the title, because he's paddled all the crossings. He's probably navigated more miles than just about anybody. There's 1 or 2 captains that have navigated quite a few miles, but literally the first year I retire, Marcus will say he's logged way more miles than anybody else. Yes, sir. He's asking about just Chumash history and the Chumash tribe. Are we going to touch on just the whole tribal history? It's a fascinating topic, and it's something that I think a lot about, because I go to a lot of schools. I was at some middle schools up in Pismo and Los Osos a couple days ago. When you look at the tribal history of most California tribes, especially the Southern California tribes, so San Francisco down. Northern tribes are a little bit different. But you go to San Francisco, where they were affected by the missions. Here's an interesting thought, and this is just my observation, so by no means is this an expert analysis. What we know about the Chumash tribe is from approximately 3 generations, maybe 2. So John Peabody Harrington, who's considered to be one of the leading anthropologists that studied the Chumash tribes, their language, their culture, their history, when you look at who he interviewed, his informants, and I'm not a big fan of that word, the knowledge keepers that he interviewed to learn about the culture, basically came from two generations, the generations that were born in the late 1700s and still knew about the tribal life, and then the early 1800s. And maybe a little bit of the third generation where they were still, raised enough and knew the languages and the stories and things like that. So the Chumash are one of the oldest tribes in North America. We've been here 13,000 years, and that's from the Arlington Spring Man. So we're trying to interpret 13,000 years of history and culture from three generations that were born somewhere in the mid-1700s and lived to the mid-1800s, and the ones that were born in the early 1800s and lived to the late 1800s, and those that were born in the 1850s and lived to the early 1900s. 3, maybe 4 at the best, for 13,000 years of history and culture. Our archaeologists and anthropologists are scientists, and they're extremely knowledgeable from a scientific point. But when it gets down to what are the people like, my friend Lou Silva, who didn't go to college, would say, Alan, if I say something that I believe about the Chumash people, and Dr. John Johnson says something completely opposite, my theory is right. Because I'm Chumash. I live it. I walk it. So it's a fascinating, it can be frustrating for tribal people. I know if I hadn't have met Dr. Johnson, I probably wouldn't be up here speaking, because I've learned a lot from Dr. Johnson from reading about Harrington and Kroeber and so on and so on. So it's what I'm excited about, the young generation learning, watching us build a tumul, watching us paddle, and then they're going to pass it on the traditional way. I was hoping one of my young tribal members was going to make it. I think she didn't make it. Oh, she did, Julia. This young lady here in the back is learning about our native plants, and what I know about native plants, I've learned mostly from this woman right here. And if it wasn't for Jan Timbrook, I don't know who I'd be bothering, but I know I can send Jan an email and ask her about a plant, and within an hour or two she's gonna give me a response, and I'll know what that plant is for, what it was used for. Is it poison? Is it edible? And my hope is that what I've learned from Jan I can pass on to Julia, and then Julia will take it and pass it on to the next 2-3 generations, the way the elders used to. So it's a fascinating, we have a symbiotic relationship with scientists, and then at the same time it's like, okay, we want to learn as much as you can, and so we don't need you. It's a strange relationship. But in the back.
So it might be a little bit of a deviation from the aquatics, but I heard you say your moniker was Fast Runner. So is there a story behind that?
Oh, boy.
And repeat the question.
I'll give you the serious answer. During the pandemic, like all of us, we had a lot of time to think and kind of think, what do we want to do, and where's our life going? And I thought, because I talk to kids all the time about know thyself, know your strengths, know your weaknesses. And I used to go by Spirit Hawk, and to be completely honest, it was a little presumptuous. I was trying to impress people. Hawk is big and strong. And I thought, what is my gift? What comes to me naturally? What do I love to do? I was at a middle school 2 days ago, and I told the kids, Hamanat netawan puchukiayak. Hello, I'm fast runner. But the last time I raced any kids, I beat them so bad, they charged me with child abuse. So I won't be racing any of you today. Now I only race other 70-year-olds. And if they charge me with elder abuse, so be it. But it's actually, this tells you, did I repeat the question? She asked about my Puchuk Yayak, the name and what it means and how I came about it. 25 years ago, by the time we started building the Elohim, I was still doing a little plastering with my brothers and nephews. And 25 years ago, I was working with my nephew, and he goes, "Uncle, you sound like an old man." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, listen to yourself as you're working." And I started working, and I noticed every time I bent down to read something, I went, "Oh. I go, "Damn, I do sound like an old man." So I have a lot of miles on my knees and ankles. I have arthritis in my knees and ankles. In the morning when I get out of bed, it takes me a little bit to take those first few steps. But one of my animal teachers was Tiny, the world's greatest dog, this little chubby, little fat Scottish Terrier dog we got when I was a kid. And I saw Tiny chase 1,000 jackrabbits and never catch a single one. But he chased every rabbit he saw. He chased every cat he saw because he was a real dog. And I saw that, grew up with that. And that's the same mentality I have. I'm going to run. I'm going to race. I don't care if I win. And that's my goal next year. I want to enter some master track meets. I have no desire to run a marathon, to run a half marathon. I'm a sprinter. I want to run 100-meter dashes. And if I come in last, I come in last. But I'm gonna get back on the track next year if it kills me. If there's any 70-year-olds, I'll meet you across the street at SBCC, whatever it is, at the track over there. Thanksgiving weekend. I'm busy this weekend, but Thanksgiving weekend, I'll meet you over there. 100 meters, I'll race. You don't have to be very fast. I can only run about 20 seconds right now for 100 meters, but I'm going to get down to about 13 if it kills me. So, any final questions? One final question. No? Going once, going twice? There in the back. Go ahead.
From your knowledge of ancestral practices, was there a time of the year that they preferred to do these crossings, or was it just year-round?
Time of year that we what?
Time of year they would do the crossings.
Oh, do the crossings. You know, and it's how the last few tamals that were built were lost. They went out during times that they traditionally would not have. But when a spiritual leader asks you, will you go out and fish and bring food back to the people at the mission because we're struggling, they're going to do whatever they can to try and help the spiritual leader, the padre. And we try and follow that today. So that's why when we didn't go September 10th, we go like, well, we'll wait till next year. And we might have a few little practices when it's nice in December or January, but we'll start back up in the spring, and most of our practices and crossings are spring, summer, fall, and the crossing we usually always do it in the fall, which is a traditional. And you don't have to be a tribal native person to know this. Anyone that's out on this channel knows that actually September, October is some really good times, nice flat times out on the channel. But then once you get into November, December, January, it's at your own risk. It could change like that. So thank you. All right. Thank you, my friend.
Just slide behind you. Thank you, Alan. That was wonderful, amazing. And thank you, everybody. Hope to see you back here soon. And safe travels home. Appreciate it. That was amazing.
Thank you.
You did a great job. And I'm jealous of the hat.